Wow, I just finished over 2 hours of recording with Dr. Jeffrey Dash. In case you don't know Dr. Dash, you need to know Dr. Dash. He is all things bioidentical hormones. He has written textbook after textbook after textbook, and I've spent the last few weeks in a deep dive in everything that he's put out there. So it was such an honor to talk to him and really get the nitty gritty about hormone replacement, about breast cancer, about nutrient deficiencies and how they are contributing to the development of breast cancer. But I also learned so much in terms of how breast cancer was historically treated, why we stopped treating it that way, and why we should maybe go back to doing what we were doing before, which was working so much better. So I'm going to break it into 2 weeks because it is a lot to take in. So stay tuned for week 1. Okay, so if you are awake, you have heard a lot of talk about bioidentical hormones. And there has been a recent resurgence in this topic, in the topic of hormones in general, whether or not they're safe, whether or not they are or can be used in women with a history of breast cancer. There's so much debate about hormones, and that is a continued debate from this narrative about estrogen and whether or not estrogen causes breast cancer, and the whole narrative that came out of the Women's Health Initiative. So if you are someone who is wondering what is the truth, then tune in and sit tight, because I have Dr. Jeffrey Dash with me today, and he has, yes, welcome, Dr. Dash.
Thank you.
He is the author of a number of textbooks, and the latest of which I've been digging into and I've shared with you is called Bioidentical Hormones. And he is here to talk about all of it, about the role of estrogen, whether or not estrogen causes breast cancer, what bioidentical hormones are, what they do, who should be using them, who shouldn't. I have a feeling that the who shouldn't is a short list. And we're going to talk about mammograms. We're going to get into it today. So welcome, Dr. Dash.
Oh, thank you so much, Jen. It's a pleasure to be here. Honored to be on your podcast, of course. And I'm all excited and getting ready to answer questions and get into the discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we're going to dig in. Yeah. We're going to dig in. But first, I have to ask you, because you have a similar medical training to mine, and I was taught that hormones cause breast cancer, and hormones are unnecessary, and you can use antidepressants, and you can use bisphosphonates, and you can use sleep medications and weight loss drugs and NSAIDs and cholesterol medicines, and there's no need for hormones. And you have a very different perspective. So how did you come to that perspective? How did you break out of the mold? So why don't you start us with how you got into medicine, and then how you got into being a thought leader?
Well, in the book I mentioned one of the influencers. When I was doing my surgical internship at Rush Presbyterian Hospital in Chicago in 1977, I did a rotation on the breast cancer floor, and the breast cancer surgeon at that time was Stephen Economo. And, every morning he had an entourage of doctors, interns, residents on rounds with him, and he would spring these questions on us during rounds. And I remember distinctly, almost like it was yesterday, he asked me the question, does estrogen cause breast cancer? And, I just finished medical school. I was in the beginning of my internship. So I didn't really know the answer to the question. So I just made up an answer based on available knowledge. And I said, of course, estrogen causes breast cancer because Estrogen stimulates breast tissue, and any stimulation will cause cancer. Any stimulation of growth will cause cancer. And he did not reply, and he did not give me an answer to the question, and we just continued doing rounds. So that was in 1977, which is more than 50 years ago, and he passed away about 10 years ago at the age of 84. But that has been haunting me for the last 50 years. And doing research for the book, I realized that the answer to that question is more complicated, more sophisticated, and involves knowledge of the two estrogen receptors, ER alpha and ER beta, which of course hadn't even been discovered back in 1977. The alpha was discovered in 86, and beta was in 96, 1996. And so the ER alpha is the proliferative receptor,
Meaning that it leads to growth.
which leads to growth, and the ER beta receptor is the tumor suppressor receptor. So the real answer involves understanding of the estrogen receptors and which types of estrogen activate either ER alpha or ER beta. For example, the Women's Health Initiative study was done using Premarin. Women's Health Initiative study, of course, first arm was published in 2002, the second arm in 2004. That was a big NIH study. It was a randomized controlled trial funded by the NIH, 5,000 women in each arm, hormone group and placebo group. There were 10,000 women randomized to each group. There were two arms. The first arm was published in 2002, in which they used medroxyprogesterone, the synthetic progestin, along with the Premarin. And the second arm was Premarin alone without the synthetic progestin, which is known to be carcinogenic. We know now that synthetic progestins, all of them are carcinogenic. So the first arm was published in 2002, and that was halted early. It was supposed to go for 8 years. They stopped it after 5.2 years because of increased breast cancer in the hormone-treated group. It was roughly 23 to 26% in the hormone treated group. However, it did not reach statistical significance. It probably would have if they'd continued the study. There was also increased blood clots, as you know, which is found with any type of oral estrogen will increase blood clotting because it stimulates the liver to produce clotting factors. The second arm of the study, which was published in 2004, showed surprisingly to the mainstream medical doctors who were doing the study. They were surprised to find a 23% reduction in breast cancer in the Premarin treated group. And fast forward 18 years, now we have the 18-year follow-up study. Remember, the women took their hormones for 5 years, and then were followed for an additional 13 years to get a 18-year follow-up. The 18-year follow-up was published in 2017 by Joanne Manson, and in 2018 by Howard Hodis. They reviewed the data, and the data showed, again, the mainstream medicine was shocked to hear that the estrogen-treated group had a 45% reduction in mortality from breast cancer, which is a paradigm shift in our thinking about breast cancer. For all these years, it was mainstream dogma that, of course, estrogen causes breast cancer. Everybody knows that. It's pretty obvious. Now we have a study, which is the gold standard randomized controlled trial, showing that's completely wrong. Estrogen is preventive of breast cancer. And the reason why it's preventive is this is explained by a Hungarian pathologist by the name of Susanna Suba. She's also a geneticist in Budapest, Hungary, and she's been writing about this for 20 years now. And what she says, and this is also, you see this in the molecular biology literature, estrogen controls the integrity of the genome. You know, in the breast cell and also the rest of the body. What does that mean? Estrogen works together with the BRCA gene, the BRCA gene, which is a tumor suppressor gene, and so what happens we're constantly getting double breaks in our DNA of each cell, and we have a repair mechanism, and that repair mechanism is estrogen working with the BRCA gene. So without estrogen, we can't, there's loss of integrity of the genome, and breast cancer
And to be
cells.
clear, I want everyone to know everyone has a BRCA gene, and the people that have a mutated gene or an absent or unworking gene are the people that get breast cancer earlier. But it's not as if that gene is unique. Everyone has the
Exactly.
BRCA genes.
Yes, and the BRCA gene is very important because it's involved in repair of DNA damage, and our DNA is undergoing oxidative damage all the time. So we need a DNA repair system, which involves the selenoprotein system. So selenium is important for that to function. So getting back to the Women's Health Initiative study, that's really the best and most convincing evidence that we have right now that estrogen is breast cancer protective.
So why do you think that people, providers included, right, are so willing to believe that estrogen causes breast cancer and so unwilling to accept that estrogen is protective? Like, why
Well,
has this estrogen is protective narrative not caught on? Because you're saying it, I'm saying it, and I'm getting hate mail.
I'm sorry, that's not a good thing.
So I don't understand why. In fact, I mean, I had a
Yeah,
debate with Michael Greger at the last A4M meeting
yeah.
because he is digging his heels in, insistent that hormones cause breast cancer.
Well, it's true. I mean, they do have a point. It is true that estrogen is a growth factor, along with a lot of other growth factors for breast cancer cells in culture, in vivo. The cancer cells will hijack the surrounding fibroblasts and surrounding tissues to manufacture estrogen. They will upregulate their aromatase enzyme, which converts testosterone to estrogen. So, it sort of sounds like, and maybe it's logical. We know that estrogen is a growth factor for active breast cancer, so maybe it's also causative. It turns out that that's incorrect. But you go back to 1895. The original treatment for breast cancer was surgical removal of the ovaries by Beetson, who wrote the original article on that. And surgical removal of the ovaries removed, production of estrogen, and that was an initial. People thought that was a good idea, and then surprisingly, if you look at the history of treatments for breast cancer, high dose estrogen, DES, was invented, and that became the treatment for breast cancer. There was a 30% remission rate with high dose estrogen, and that was used from about 1930 until 1970 when tamoxifen was invented. And it was actually brought mainstream by a breast cancer researcher by the name of V. Craig Jordan, who's actually, he was dubbed the father of tamoxifen because
Yeah.
he really gave it feet to.
I worked with his wife, who was a very well-known breast surgeon.
Ah, I didn't know that.
Hmm.
Okay, so
Yeah.
he died in he died I think in 2024, about a year ago, from
Yeah,
kidney cancer.
not too long
He had
ago.
renal cancer.
Yeah.
And the tamoxifen, they actually did studies in the early 70s comparing tamoxifen to DES, and it turned out DES was actually better for treatment of breast cancer, active cancer. But because the tamoxifen is easier to tolerate, that became the new treatment for breast cancer. Uh,
Why was tamoxifen easier to tolerate? What were the issues with DES?
uh, it's just a very strong estrogen, and women would, it was just too much of an estrogenic effect, I think. Uh,
I wonder if it was that, or we had problems with DES. It was given to pregnant women, right, to manage. Um,
yes, it was given to about millions of pregnant women
what?
to, it was supposedly give them a better pregnancy. And then in the early 70s was discovered that DES causes cervical cancer in the offspring, the daughters, and also the male children had problems. So there, it's one of the so it was banned
Yeah.
in the early 70s, and as an endocrine EDC, endocrine disrupting chemical, and the tamoxifen replaced it. Tamoxifen, is most a lot of women will tolerate tamoxifen without much trouble because it has kind of both estrogenic and anti-estrogenic effects. It blocks the estrogen receptors, but also has it fits into the receptors, so there's an estrogenic effect as well. Sort of, and the article I quote in my book is an article entitled uh, "Anti-Estrogen Treatment: Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde," because it has these dual qualities.
Yeah.
It can be helpful and it can also be harmful. The tamoxifen is an estrogen receptor blocker, and of course it's mostly replaced by the aromatase inhibitors when they came out. The aromatase inhibitors will produce much more profound estrogen depletion. If you try to measure estrogen levels, it's practically undetectable in women taking aromatase inhibitors, and
But
they're
with
miserable.
all due respect, if you measure hormones in these postmenopausal women before they take aromatase inhibitors, there's very little estrogen to measure
Yes,
there anyway.
yes, of course, and most of it is going to be estrone, which targets alpha predominantly. Estrone is manufactured by fat cells. There are other organ systems that produce estrogen mostly through aromatization. Bone, for example, will make its own estrogen. The brain makes its own estrogen. The retina is highly dependent on estrogen and makes its own estrogen.
Yeah, that's why eyesight starts to fail after
And
menopause.
yeah, so the the thought is that macular degeneration is an estrogen deficiency symptom or disease, and that's because the macula needs estrogen, and as we age, we're not, there's less and less estrogen. Uh, the So yeah, so the anti-estrogens have become mainstream treatment for breast cancer, and also for breast cancer survivors, they're given tamoxifen for 5 years as a standard adjuvant therapy. The average person, the average healthcare worker, average physician will see that anti-estrogen drugs are being used as mainstream treatment. So uh, the logical thought is that estrogens cause cancer. Give an estrogen blocking drug. That's the treatment for cancer. So it kind of fits together. And so when we come up with the idea that estrogen does not cause cancer, it actually prevents breast cancer, then that is contrary to mainstream dogma. And we now see articles in the mainstream medical literature saying that we now have a paradigm shift, and the mainstream dogma is incorrect. And that doesn't happen overnight. That's going to take time. That's the disruptive science of Kuhn. Kuhn wrote the book on that. And it's, a lot of these paradigm shifts do not occur until in a complete generation of practitioners have been replaced with new people. It's almost a generational thing. But
any chance? Are you Jewish?
Yes.
Okay, so we are talking about this at this time in the Torah, that the Jews spent 40 years in the desert after they were rescued from Egypt by God, and before that they were going to go into Israel, the Holy Land, the Promised Land. We wandered around the desert for 40 years, and the reason is because we couldn't have people who had been part of slavery to come into the Promised Land because they had a slave mentality. And that is not what God meant for the new land, the Promised Land. And this is the same kind of thing. Like, we have to wait for all of the people who cannot be convinced because they've been so trained to believe that estrogen is bad, that estrogen is the culprit, that estrogen is carcinogenic. We have to wait for them to leave the system before the system can change.
Are you ready for a breast cancer screening revolution? Well, I'm thrilled to introduce to you a breast cancer screening tool that I have only recently learned about, but I have universally adopted. This is the ARIA test. This groundbreaking at-home breast cancer screening test is one that I believe will completely change the game. So imagine a screening test that's as simple as shedding a tear, because that's ARIA. It's a non-invasive, convenient, and perfect for all bodies and all breasts. Dense breast implants, no problem. ARIA makes it clear for everyone, even women as young as 30. ARIA is backed by over a decade of clinical trials, thousands of samples, and it's developed alongside top breast health experts. Here's how it works. You collect a tear sample at home, and then ARIA then analyzes it for protein biomarkers that can signal early breast cancer. And the best part, you get a consultation with a breast health specialist to review your results. Now, ARIA isn't replacing breast imaging. I am using it alongside QT. It's complementing it and giving you a fuller picture of your breast health. Knowledge is power, and ARIA is putting that power back in your hands. It's time to take control of your breast health, and ARIA is another way of doing it. Go to aria.care, AURIA.care, and use my code DrJenn20 in capitals, DRJENN 20 to get 20% off. Back to our show.
Yes, and the other arguments, bits of evidence, pieces of evidence that again are very supportive that estrogen is breast cancer protective is the fact that pregnancy confers protection from breast cancer, and that's been known going all the way back to the early 1700s. There was an Italian physician, Bernardo Ramazzini, who made the observation in the medical journals back then that women with multiple pregnancies are protected from breast cancer. Women, celibate women, or women with no children, that's the population that they would see breast cancer. And that's also true in animal studies. When we now have a number of animal models of breast cancer in mice. The most common is the chemical-induced breast cancer, usually using DMBA, which is a carcinogenic chemical. And if you give the mice pregnancy, they're protected from DMB-induced breast cancer. Also, there are also genetically modified mice where they upregulate oncogenes such as c-Myc and cyclin D, and again, pregnancy or pregnancy level hormones, estrogen, progesterone, which mimics pregnancy, will protect the mice. And the third model, of course, is injecting breast cancer cells, human breast cancer cells, into mice, which is called a xenograft. And that, again, same thing. The researcher does all of this is Dr. Rajkumar Lakshwami. I think I shortened the name a little bit. He's in Texas Tech at El Paso, Texas, and he's devoted his entire career to doing these studies in the animal model breast cancer studies, and he even came up with comparing estrogen progesterone hormone treatment to aromatase inhibitors, and he found that the hormone treated mice actually had better outcomes when the breast cancer cells were injected. They had better outcomes than the aromatase inhibitor mice.
I think a lot of where the confusion comes about is because we confuse associations with causation. So, the first thing that I would love for you to talk about is people, providers included, see a tumor that's ER positive and they say, okay, this was caused by estrogen because the tumor has estrogen receptors on it. So can you address that?
Well, if you look at animal models, let's try to answer that question in animal models, John. The, the doctor who tried to convince the world that estrogen causes breast cancer in animals is Jose Rousseau, and we talk about some of his studies. He eventually gave up because estrogen doesn't cause breast cancer in mice, in wild-type mice. You have to genetically modify the mice so they're more susceptible to it, or use special treated cells. You have to manipulate something. Wild-type mice won't develop breast cancer by giving them estrogen. And he eventually gave up on it, and then took up the idea, the research topic of trying to examine and understand why high hormone levels of pregnancy confers protection from breast cancer. And the study that I'd like to point to that really shows that the best was done by Javed Iqbal in Toronto, and he reviewed a registry database of about 2,000 women, young women, premenopausal women who had breast cancer diagnosis. Remember, these are younger than age 50, the premenopausal, still able to get pregnant. And he then reviewed separated the breast cancer patients into the group that had a pregnancy 6 months or more after the diagnosis of breast cancer, and the other group, compared it to the other group of women who did not have a pregnancy after their diagnosis of breast cancer. And what he published, the data they published, was that there was a 74% reduction in breast cancer mortality if the breast cancer patient had a pregnancy after the diagnosis of breast cancer. 74% reduction. And that's due to the very high hormone levels, the high estrogen. And not only that, remember, pregnancy hormones include very high estriol levels, which is E3. And that's one of the reasons which is known to target ER beta, which is a tumor suppressor receptor. And that's one of the reasons why we use preferentially in our office program, we preferentially use BiEst, which means 2 estrogens. The estradiol is 20% estradiol, 80% Estriol, which is E3, 20% E2, 80% E3, to target ER beta. And the other important thing that we do, which is very breast cancer preventive, is based on the research of a breast cancer surgeon in Dayton, Ohio, by the name of Rebecca Glazer. I would guess that you're familiar with her.
Oh, I know her well.
Yeah, and probably on a first name basis. And she, as you know, her study showed a 40% reduction in breast cancer in the testosterone treated women. She does the testosterone pellets, of course, and if you look at the molecular biology, preclinical studies, testosterone suppresses ER alpha, and it activates ER beta, which is what we're looking for in a breast cancer preventive hormone. And so we make sure that every patient on a hormone replacement program also receives testosterone and has a good testosterone level. With Dr. Glazer's testosterone pellet studies, her levels, she studied the levels that she was getting were between 300 and 500, I think it's nanograms per deciliter. With our topical testosterone cream, we usually see levels are around 100, 120, not quite as high, but still, significantly higher than most postmenopausal women will have testosterone levels between 15 and 25, something like that.
Yeah.
So and then, we talk about breast cancer prevention. It's very important, and there are 3 chapters in the book on iodine supplementation. We do iodine testing, which is a simple test. It's just to spot urine for iodine, which can be, which is done at the same lab that draws the blood. All the national labs will do a spot urine for iodine, and for women who are iodine deficient, we give them iodine supplements. Every patient on a hormone replacement program should be taking iodine supplement, unless they have a contraindication, some kind of an unusual thyroid disease contraindication, which we discuss in the book. By the way, I have another book on thyroid for people who are interested.
I know you do.
Which is Natural Thyroid Toolkit, and we talk about more in depth on the iodine in that book.
And just out of curiosity, what level are you looking for on that spot urine?
I don't use the lab range for the reference range by the lab. What I use is the World Health Organization guidelines, and a lot of people think of the World Health Organization as a gigantic program for vaccinating the world. The Bill Gates Foundation and et cetera, and it sort of has a bad reputation for being involved with Bill Gates. Most people don't realize another big chunk of what they do is iodine supplementation in third world countries, where it's a huge problem. There are billions of people that live that have an iodine deficient diet, and so they go
Including in the United States.
And also,
you don't have to be in a third world country to be iodine deficient.
I would agree 100%. And so we're seeing it. If we test everyone routinely, and if you do that, you will see iodine deficient people. I think I use the World Health Organization guidelines, which is anything below 100 milligrams per micrograms per deciliter. Below 50 is considered iodine deficiency. Below 100 is insufficiency. The iodine supplement that we use is called Iodine, which is originally developed by Dr. Abraham. His company was called Optimox. He died about 10 years ago, and everything was moved over to Allergy Research, which now offers Iodine. Those are 12.5 milligram tablets. They're based on the formula originally. Dr. Lugol in 1840 came up with Lugol solution, which is 5% molecular iodine, I2, and 10% potassium iodide. We usually start off with a half tablet, and of course, the two doctors who worked on the iodine project with Dr. Abraham, one of them is David Brownstein, is a good colleague and also a mentor. When I switched from working in the hospital as a radiologist, I switched to integrative medicine. He got me started on a lot of the things that I'm doing, the other doctor who worked on the iodine project was George Fletchus, who's now retired, they are experts in iodine, and the iodoral tablet is 12.5 milligrams, and the reason for that is based on the average iodine intake in Japan, in the Japanese diet, which is based on it's based on seaweed consumption. The Japanese diet, the seaweed is high in iodine. They have 3 or 4 different types of seaweed that's just part of their normal diet, and a lot of it is based on the amount of seafood consumed. So for example, there was a study done in I think it was Iceland, and they looked at breast cancer rates in women who lived on the coast with high fish consumption and higher iodine levels in the women living on the coast compared to women living more inland, and the higher iodine consumption from along the coast was correlated with a much lower breast cancer rate. So iodine is very important for breast cancer prevention, and there's a huge volume of studies in the preclinical medical literature, mostly from outside the United States, showing the underlying molecular biology of that, which we go into in more detail in the book, of course.
Yeah, and it also contributes significantly to the thyroid cancer incidence.
Thyroid iodine is very important for preventing thyroid cancer. Thyroid cysts, nodules are all due to, and goiter are all due to iodine deficiency.
Yeah.
Which iodine is so important that the United States government decided to give iodine supplements to the entire population in 1924, which is, of course, as you know, iodized salt. But the problem is, the doctors tell everybody don't use salt. Salt is bad for you. So a lot of people avoid salt, or if they use salt, it's the Himalaya pink sea salt, which has no iodine in it.
Right.
So we do see, those people have iodine deficiency, and we do pick those up when we do the testing. You mentioned progesterone deficiency as an important risk factor for cancer, for breast cancer, and for all cancers. That study was done by Linda Cowan, epidemiologist at I think Johns Hopkins, in early on 1981, and she did a large study looking at women who at fertility clinics, they suffering from infertility, and also had because they were not ovulating, they had low progesterone levels, progesterone deficiency, and I think it was a registry database, and she found that progesterone deficiency in that women population had a 500% increase in breast cancer and a 10 times increase in all cancers, which, that's like mind-boggling. Increase in all cancers by a factor of 10, which shows you how important progesterone is as a basic anti-cancer agent. And progesterone is very, very breast cancer preventive. And what most people don't realize is it's also preventive of many other cancers.
Yeah. Well, I think that
You know,
there's
the
a
other
lack
one, of
of
course, is
knowledge. I
endometrial
think there's a
cancer.
lack of knowledge and understanding around progesterone. And most
Yeah.
of the exposure and education, if you even want to call it that, for the last several decades has been around progestins, not around progesterone.
You know, mainstream doctors, primary care internists, they are completely unfamiliar with natural progesterone. They don't even know it exists.
Right.
And and I mentioned this in the book. I listed a couple of emails I received from a patient who the email says from the patient, my primary care asked me what the progesterone is for. They never heard of it, and that's fairly typical. Because it's a natural substance. It's not patented. It's not a patented drug. The drug industry can make no money from natural progesterone, and the drug industry makes money on the synthetic progestins, which of course are endocrine disrupting chemicals, and that's what mainstream medicine uses,
Yes.
which of course is extremely bad. Uh,
Yes.
but
Yes.
that's what mainstream medicine is based on. It's based on chemically altered uh, chemically altered structures that are found in nature, and
Because
the,
so
the
that
very
people understand the pharmaceutical companies, they cannot trademark a molecule of nature. So they cannot sell you or make money off of bioidentical progesterone. So they
exactly
have to alter it in some way in order to
exactly
patent it, in order to market it.
and any slight alteration of a hormone structure leads to basically a Frankenstein monster, and it's and the very last chapter of the book, chapter 30, is where we go into the fine tuning of biological systems. The human body has 1 trillion cells, and inside each cell, there are sophisticated molecular machines and molecular pathways that are all fine tuned. When you throw in a chemically altered hormone, it throws the fine tuning completely out of whack, and uh, it destroys the fine tuning of biological systems, which eventually leads to infertility and extinction. So I raised the question, what's going to happen eventually? What's going to eventually happen with a medical paradigm that's based on chemically altered substances with the destruction of the fine tuning of biological systems? What's going to happen over the next 100 years, 200 years, 300 years? And I suggested eventually this type of medical system will lead to the extinction of the human race.
Hello, my beautiful listeners. I'm taking a quick break here to share something truly transformative with you today. If you're ready to take control of your breast health journey, then you need to get your hands on a copy of my book, The Smart Woman's Guide to Breast Cancer. I wrote this book to make a massive impact in the world of breast cancer, empowering women everywhere to make informed choices and educated decisions. You have so much more power and control over your health than you might think. And this is a roadmap to harnessing that power. Inside, you'll uncover the truth about conventional treatments. They're often overestimated benefits and underestimated, underexplained, and underdisclosed long term side effects. But more importantly, you'll discover the true drivers of health and how the choices you make at home every day can lead you to the best health, the breast health of your life, even after a breast cancer diagnosis. Whether you're looking to prevent a diagnosis, avoid recurrence, or simply live your healthiest life, this book is for you. Join me on this journey to empowerment and health. Grab your copy of The Smart Woman's Guide to Breast Cancer today, and let's revolutionize the way that we approach breast health together.
And
Yeah.
we're already seeing that road be paved, right? I mean, we are seeing more infertility than we ever saw before. And we're seeing more breast cancer. We're not having more women die of breast cancer, but we're definitely seeing an increased incidence of the disease. And that is because we are chemically engineering people's hormonal systems.
It's, our RFK Jr. brings this up. That's how he was, he ran for president on a platform that, we have this chronic disease epidemic, and, which has been increasing, and it's based on these very bad practices of the medical system and the pharmaceutical industry, of using chemically altered hormones, chemically altered drugs, and of course, he's also interested in the food system, the food supply, chemically altered foods, processed foods, as a cause for the chronic disease epidemic. But a lot of it is due to the medical system, and we have the sickest country in the world, and we spend the most on healthcare, and it's not good, and it's eventually, if we don't reverse this process, it's just going to keep getting worse.
But
And
there is something complicit there, don't you think? I mean, there is something about having a primarily processed food diet and really pushing processed foods, and the government supplementing and subsidizing the crops that go towards processed foods, and then their role in causing chronic illness and disease, which is then masked or suppressed by the pharmaceutical industry. So it's a whole system that is designed to get you sick, keep you sick.
then that brings up the article by Stephanie Seneff on glyphosate associated with 22 different diseases. The use of glyphosate is called Roundup, which is sprayed on crops, mostly Roundup Ready soy, and then you also have genetically modified corn, the BT corn, which is genetically modified to have an insecticide in the corn.
Mm-hmm.
So when you eat the corn, you're eating insecticides. We've created these genetically modified foods that are basically poisoning the entire population. And Seneff and Swanson wrote an article showing that these 22 diseases are increasing along pretty much in tandem with glyphosate usage. We're seeing a lot of people who are sensitive to gluten. A lot of it is related to the glyphosate, because they spray glyphosate on wheat fields, not as a pesticide, but as a drying agent, for pre-harvest drying agent. So all of the bred wheat products in the United States are filled with glyphosate. So a lot of people who are sensitive to wheat will feel better going on a gluten-free diet, which eliminates that huge glyphosate load. So that we deal with a lot of that type of thing in our office. We do test routinely for anti-gliadin antibodies. Gliadin is a wheat protein, and we're able to pick up early gluten sensitivity. The other test that we use is the Enterolabs test, which is a stool test developed by Dr. Fine, F-I-N-E, gastroenterologist, who developed the test. It's a stool test looking for the same antibody, anti-gliadin antibodies in the stool. Remember, we eat the wheat. Where does it go? We poop it out with the antibody. So the stool test for the antibody is much more accurate and sensitive. It picks up the gluten sensitivity much earlier, and it's the people who have this type of sensitivity, it develops an inflammatory process in the gut. They lose the villi. They develop malabsorption from the inflammation, and they may have elevated liver enzymes. They may have nutrient deficiencies because they can't absorb things like iron, calcium, and B12 malabsorption. So you'll see, B12, low B12, low iron, that type of a pattern. If you see that along with an elevated anti-gliadin antibody, that's putting all that together, it's fairly definitive for gluten sensitivity. Of course, the treatment is gluten-free diet, which doesn't make any money for the drug industry, obviously.
Right, right.
So,
I
yeah,
actually take it a little further, and I most of the time, but remember, my population are women who already have breast cancer. So I ask them to remove grains because I do
yeah,
think that there is cross reactivity. Also, we have no nutritional need for grains. So if we never ate another grain again,
yeah,
we would suffer no nutritional deficiency. And I don't believe in putting things in your diet that don't benefit you in any way.
yeah.
And they're
I think
also,
that's a
by
good
and
idea.
large, high glycemic foods.
Yeah, the wheat products will be converted to sugar, glucose fairly quickly, and they develop pre-diabetes. I think that's probably a good idea. I would go along with that. Yeah,
Well, I, for one, am really grateful that you did those surgical rounds with that doctor
Dr.
who,
Stephen Economo,
who asked you
which is a
if
Greek name.
estrogen causes breast cancer and it's stuck in your craw
I still remember.
because
I still remember like it was yesterday.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
I wonder I wonder why, well, it's all God, right? Um, because most people are unbothered by that whole thing. They just assume that estrogen causes breast cancer and they have no problems with, you know, the illogicality of it, if that's a word. They're so willing to accept that and you weren't.
Uh, it's there mainstream modern medicine has a number of errors, and I was actually thinking that my next book would be entitled uh, "Errors in Modern Medicine." But I decided not to use the title because it's too negative. But the reality is, this is one of the major errors of modern medicine. And then we talked about the cholesterol theory as another one, and the thyroid book is all about errors in endocrinology. There are a lot of them there,
Yeah.
and uh, but anytime you have entrenched science where there's financial interests that are entrenched, you're going to have errors like that because it's just the financial stakes are too high, and you know uh, it's just human nature to want to the simple explanation, the simple belief in something, and it's eventually things will change. Uh,
Yeah.
it's either things will change or uh, the chronic disease epidemic will get worse. And as you pointed out, the fertility rates are dropping. I think it's 2.0 is the magic number. If it drops below 2.0 per married couple, then that's below the replacement rate,
Yeah.
which means we can't maintain the population. We don't have enough new workers coming into the workforce to pay for Social Security. and the whole thing falls apart. And there are a number of countries that are already below 2.0, and the United States is predicted to get there pretty soon. And
Yeah, no, it's pretty scary.
it's we're right on the edge of a cliff, the cliff called extinction of the species. We're right on the edge,
Yeah.
and uh, the average person is busy trying to make ends meet. Stretch their paycheck to cover their expenses. They don't have they just don't have time for this, thinking about this type of thing.
Yeah. And I think that that includes the providers. I think that, there is something to be said for the fact that they they spend the majority of their 20s training, right? And working at minimum wage. And they get through that time and they've paid for their education and they've paid for their dues. And they get to the other side and start to work. And what do? They put their heads down and work. And most people, once they've embarked on that career, they are not thinking critically anymore. They're just not.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, and that's what we have to deal with. And it's when we look at the negatives in mainstream medicine, all the errors, it's sad, but there are good areas in medicine. Somebody has an infected appendix, appendectomy is a good thing, save
For
their life.
sure. For
Somebody
sure.
has a car accident with a pneumothorax, the trauma surgeon is right there to put in the chest tube. Somebody has a subdural hematoma, the neurosurgeon can drain that. So they're good. Uh, Ophthalmology, doing the lens implants. I think they've made tremendous progress.
Yeah.
That's
We're not
really
throwing
great.
the baby out with the bathwater, right?
Yeah.
Like
So
there are amazing, amazing parts of modern medicine.
yeah,
And
and
there are a lot of mistakes.
and I think the bioidentical hormone replacement is a very good part of medicine that is helping a lot of people. And my mission, that's what I do. I get up in the morning because I want to relieve misery and suffering by helping as much as I can to give and prescribe bioidentical hormone replacement to as many menopausal women that are asking for it.
Yeah, agreed.
And
And I'm right
that's
there with you.
yeah,
And at the same time, I'm really trying to support a population that is not currently being supported, which is the population of women who are either at risk for breast cancer because they come from a breast cancer family, or they've had breast cancer and are being told that they're not a candidate for hormone replacement. And the truth is that if someone is hearing that, they're hearing it from a provider that doesn't understand breast cancer and doesn't understand hormones. I want to get back to Rebecca Glazer a little bit,
yes, of course,
only because yes, she does do testosterone supplementation,
yeah,
but she
yeah,
also does it along with aromatase inhibition, and she believes that estrogen is bad.
yes. I actually I had a brief uh, discussion with her via email back and forth, and that became pretty obvious that she does believe that. I think you're absolutely correct
Yeah.
about that.
Um, so she is still like partially blind, right?
Uh,
And I'm
it
not
you know
saying this to be
I
critical. I respect what she does
yeah
tremendously.
I can understand where she's coming from. People who believe estrogen causes breast cancer. It's I it's almost like a belief system type thing, and uh, the I tend to give them a little more slack, and try to be non judgmental.
Yeah.
Uh, because there's just no way in a million years that they're ever going to change their mind.
Of
Now,
course not.
it's sort of like somebody
It's
who's
dogma.
a different religion. You're not going to convince them to change religions.
Yes. And the truth is, you can almost find evidence to support whatever you believe, right?
Uh,
So,
that's true. I mean, you can cherry pick studies and just say,
yeah,
well, these are the studies, and the pharmaceutical industry wants doctors to believe that randomized controlled trials are the only studies that should be looked at and believed.
of
And of course,
course.
that's nonsense. But that's part. Medicine is controlled by the drug industry, and earlier you asked the question, well, why do people believe what they believe? Why do doctors believe what they believe? And a lot of it is based on what the drug industry wants them to believe. They would like doctors to think that synthetic chemically altered progesterone is the same as natural progesterone.
And most doctors don't know the difference.
And that has been that was over years. The distinction has been blurred in the medical literature, and that goes in favor of the drug industry because they want to sell their synthetic, carcinogenic progestins. The other belief that goes in favor of greater drug sales and is favorable to the drug industry is the belief that estrogen causes breast cancer, because now instead of 50 million women taking hormone replacement, it's a fraction of that. It's only, I think it's only 5 million.
Yeah.
And
And I
so
think it was 70 million before the Women's Health Initiative, right?
it was a much higher number. That's for sure. And it dropped precipitously after the 2002 Women's Health Initiative study came out. And the point that I made in the book is that this creates a huge population of 50 million women who are then avoid estrogen and will then develop the various degenerative diseases of estrogen deficiency. A few
Yeah.
of them we discussed earlier, but we go through it one by one: osteoarthritis, osteoporosis, uh, cognitive dysfunction.
Yeah.
We know
Dementia,
from
Alzheimer's.
the Women's Health Initiative and other studies that this is the timing hypothesis of Howard Hodis, which is if women start hormone replacement immediately after menopause within the first 5 years, they will have a 40 to 50% reduction in cardiovascular disease, a 40 to 40% reduction, 30 to 40% reduction in mortality from heart disease, which is huge. And
Huge.
that's data is in the Women's Health Initiative study.
Yeah. I think I saw a paper saying that due to the lack of hormone use following the Women's Health Initiative, that 90,000 extra women a year die of cardiovascular disease.
That was the Philip Serrell, I think that was his article that you saw. Philip Serrell, who's a OB/GYN professor at Yale, and he calculated that roughly 50 plus or minus, depending on how you calculate it. He looked at only patients who had hysterectomies who are avoiding hormone replacement, because the data is more clear after hysterectomy in the younger age group that there's a huge increase in mortality without hormone replacement. So he calculated about 50,000 women between two time periods over a number of years, died needlessly. They didn't have to die, and so the it's really a financial boon to the drug industry to have this belief that estrogen causes breast cancer.
Yeah.
to have women avoid hormone replacement because it creates a huge population of customers for drugs for uh, you know to prevent heart disease. All these women are given statin drugs.
Well, but it doesn't prevent heart disease. Like let's talk about statins. Do statins prevent heart disease? Is cholesterol the problem?
That's another one of the error. I call it an error of modern medicine. This cholesterol theory of heart disease is another error of modern medicine. But mainstream medicine believes that. Again, it's another belief system, which is wrong, and it has been overturned by new technology. The cholesterol panel has mostly been replaced by the calcium score, and the decision to treat a patient with statin drug is no longer based on the cholesterol panel. It's based on what the calcium score is. Uh, and that book came out in 2018 called Heart Book.
Yep.
And we talk about calcium score and cholesterol theory of heart disease, etc. But you're absolutely right. It's a again, it's a belief system which has been overturned by new technology and new information. The calcium score is highly accurate and sensitive in predicting who will have a heart attack. And the probably the best study was done by Paolo Raggi, published in 2004, and he looked at roughly 500 patients with known heart disease, serial calcium scores, and cholesterol levels over 6 years. And the most significant factor, the most predictive factor was percent increase in calcium score, annual increase. If the annual increase in calcium score was over 15%, those people were in the high risk category. And if the calcium score was under 15% annual increase, those people were golden, and almost no heart attack risk at all. And the surprising thing is, it doesn't matter what the starting calcium score is. You have the low calcium people and the high calcium. If it's under 15%, they have dormant disease. It's not progressive; it's dormant, and they're fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we do that in our office. We do serial calcium scores, and if the calcium score progression annually is greater than 50%, that's the red light, warning light on your dashboard going off that we need to change something.
Yeah. But putting people on statins based on an overall total cholesterol does not impact survival.
No.
Positively impact survival.
Cholesterol levels are not predictive of heart attack risk, and so the study that shows that calcium score should be used instead of cholesterol levels was done by Joshua Mitchell using the Walter Reed registry, and he found that if the calcium score is under 100, a statin drug has no clinical benefit, zero clinical benefit. So we use that reasoning to get our menopausal patients off of statin drugs. The cardiologist has to agree to that. That's because that's in the cardiology literature. Joshua Mitchell studies in the American Journal of Cardiology, and the cardiologist has to go along with taking the patient off a statin drug.
Yeah. I just wonder how much that literature is trickling down. And also, I think that a large proportion of the prescribers are internal medicine doctors, are
the primary care docs will
coming from the primary care offices, and they're not getting the memo.
The medicine it doesn't change. It's not going to. It takes time for things to change, as we discussed earlier. This comes up a lot in my office. The patient asks me, why is my doctor like this? Why do they, they're not prescribing what I want. Instead, they give me this other drug, which I don't want. Why are they like that? And my answer over the years has always been the same. It's, and I say, yes, they're all like that. They're never, ever going to change. And that's a good thing, because otherwise I'd have nothing to do.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure that serving your purpose is the solution here,
Yeah.
but let's go with it. So I want to tie a bow on the estrogen thing and ask a question. So I think I'm pretty clear that estrogen does not cause breast cancer.
Good.
Okay. But why? What about estrogen deprivation? And why does that work? While you're waiting for next week's talk, you may want to check out all of Dr. Dash's books. They're all on Amazon, and his last name is spelled Dach. I would especially tune into the Bioidentical Hormones, Volume 1 and Volume 2. The last one was recently updated, so the cover is a picture of a woman whose face is a puzzle. I don't have it in front of me right now, but you are definitely going to want to check them out, especially if you have been considering bioidentical hormones, because there is so much information there and so much support there. And we will list everything in the show notes so that you know the name of the books and how to get in touch with Dr. Dash. And just know that you get the second half coming next week and the answers to your questions.